run into the ground and burn to the ground. They find the police to be a convenient scapegoat to ignore the fact that they're the ones that have been running these cities that have been burned to the ground. And if they don't scapegoat the police, the real heroes running into the burdened buildings while everyone else is running out, everyone might turn around and start to look at them and say, wait. We have a crap economy. We have the worst schools anywhere. Our hospitals are terrible. Our cities are dirty. Crime is through the roof. And you're in charge. No, the police did it. The police did it. The police did it. God forbid we focus on what's really wrong. A welfare state that incentivizes fathers to leave the home in many cases. A liberal cultural war on boys and men and manhood. It's time to take manhood back. Back. We need to be proud. We need to lead. We need to show our kids and lead by example. I want to show you a picture. This is a real badass right here. You see that guy? This hulk of a man in the middle? 6'3", 400 pounds. If you're listening on audio with those two lovely ladies, that's my grandfather. He was a badass. It's my grandmother to his left and her sister to the right. Well, since passed. This is when men were men. My grandfather was a unit, man. He was a badass. They tried to rob him one night. He owned the bar. He used to keep his money in a rubber band. And as Guy can attest to, by the way, I just called my mother before the show. I had her on speaker to make sure I was getting the details right. Hyperbole helps no one. It's a true story. Because he owned a bar, and back then they didn't have credit cards. Everything was a cash business. That's why bars got robbed a lot. The bar was at 64th Place and Myrtle Avenue in Queens. It was called Gibby. That was his nickname, Gibby. He was a hulk of a man. When men were men. Guy came in with a gun, knew Gibby had his money in a rubber band in a pocket. Told him, you're going to give me that money. And Gibby promptly told him to go F himself, if you know what that means. So the guy shot him in the head. Grazed him, didn't kill him. Spent some time in the hospital. Not suggesting you do that. I'm just telling you that Gibby was a badass. Gibby was an example. That's when men were men. When children could look up to their fathers and their grandfathers. Not for their perfection, we're all far from perfect. But for an example of what resilience and grit means. Are there any other life skills more valuable than resilience and grit? Not succeeding at everything? Gosh, I failed at a lot. I wanted to be a doctor. Didn't work out. I went to medical school. I ran for office. I lost. I became a podcaster and an author. Because I kept coming back. My grandfather was like that. Shot in the head, was probably back at work, I think, the next week. We weren't getting his money. And tough and rugged doesn't mean going out there and beating the snot out of people in the middle of the street. Matter of fact, having spent the last 20 years of my life before they put this port in my chest, because I can't grapple anymore, and my arms don't even work. The toughest guys I met, the real fighters, the Matt Serras, the Joe Scarolas of the world, Pete Sells, guys I had the privilege of being on the mats with, usually them whooping my ass. The toughest guys I've ever met are typically the quietest when it comes to that kind of stuff. Not quietest in their lives, but quietest when it comes to talking about how tough they are. These were real men. My grandfather, Gibby, didn't need to do a lot of talking. They all had their scars. They taught their kids and their grandkids discipline. My grandfather, Frank, again, God rest his soul. That's my mother's father, Gibby. My father's father is Frank. Fought in the Battle of the Bulge. He named my father John after his battle buddy who was killed. You know, he never talked about that. Ever. He was a tough son of a, you know, tough as they come, my grandfather. When I was graduating the Secret Service Academy, I think I've told this story before for you older listeners, some of you are new. We didn't have a lot of money, so my grandparents wanted to come down for the graduation ceremony. So we stayed in the Doubletree Hotel in Alexandria, and we all stayed in one room. We didn't have any money. It's not a sob story, it's just the way it was. Couldn't afford a bunch of rooms. So my grandfather got up in the middle of the night and screamed at about 2 o'clock in the morning. I had the graduation the next day. And I think I was sleeping on the couch. It was like a pull-out. It was a suite. And nobody did anything. And then the next day, I asked my father or my grandmother, one of them, what that was about. And they're like, "Oh, your grandfather has horrible memories of World War II. So it happens once in a while, and it's just been happening for a long time, and it's just the way it is." Those were badasses. Those were real men. We need more real men back. You want to talk about police reform? Fine. We're a constitutional republic. The police have a monopoly on the use of force. We should look at every single use of force incident because that's what a free society does. But if you're not going to talk about the crisis in manhood, the fatherhood crisis, the lack of fathers in the home, the cultural breakdown, the cultural rot, the societal rot we're undergoing right now as fatherless children grow up in areas with no schools, no economy, no future, no hospitals, and no nothing, then I'm dismissing you out of hand because you're not a serious person. When you're ready to come back and do a little bit of homework, I'll happily have a conversation with you. All right, I'm going to take